gentlemen, and welcome to the February 5th, 2013 meeting of the Downers Grove Village Council. It's my privilege to call this meeting to order. There are copies of our agenda on either side of the room. If you haven't already availed yourself of one, please pick one up and you can follow along with tonight's proceedings. There will be multiple opportunities for public comment, both with respect to items that are on our agenda this evening, as well as an opportunity for general comments with respect to matters not appearing on tonight's agenda. It is customary for us to begin our meetings by reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, so at this point in the evening, I would invite everyone to please rise and join us in reciting the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. And with that, I would like to ask our fine village clerk to please call the roll.
Commissioner Rankin? Here. Commissioner Barnett? Here. Commissioner Neustadt?
Here.
Commissioner Durkin?
Here.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Here.
Commissioner Schnell? Mayor Tully?
Here. Thank you. That brings us to item 3 on our agenda, minutes of prior council meetings, and we have 2 sets of minutes to review and approve tonight. One is of our regular council meeting on January 15th, 2013, and also our executive session minutes for approval only on January 15th, 2013. Are there any comments, questions, corrections to either set of minutes from any members of the council? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. Those minutes are approved. And it brings us right to item number 4, which is a segment of our meeting that is reserved for public comments, and particularly general comments with respect to matters not appearing on tonight's agenda. So if there are any questions or comments of a general nature with respect to items not appearing on our agenda, the protocol is to please come down to the podium, give us your name and address, and we would welcome hearing from you. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Deanne Burley. I'm a radio talk show host. And there was another party that was coming, but she's late, to bring something to the floor here that is a concern. I just got off the air just a few minutes ago about a situation that's going on, and it isn't your area, but it is something's going on nationwide in regards to driver's license for illegal immigrants. It's illegal, and it should not be going on. I had gentlemen on from another state, and we were talking about it because it causes a situation where we just had George Ryan, former governor, go to prison for this, and he came out of prison, and then we're legalizing it. It doesn't make sense. You have people out here that are poor, handicapped, disabled. They are trying to drive back and forth to go to work. Some of them have limited means and limited income because of the impact of what's going on. Right now, every area, different towns, including Downers, what's going on right now is that they're being impacted by their cars being towed away, $500 fees being assessed. In Carroll Stream, it's $700 for them to get their car back out, to even just try to get to work. American citizens, they're disabled. This needs to be maybe looked at by this council, because this is something that is going on in Downers Grove, and it's impacting on the people in the community and those people that are trying just to survive. When we are very much liberal to people that are not even from this country, people that don't have jobs, that have not worked and labored, families have not labored here for years and eons trying to make it. We're more liberal to people from foreign countries than we are for our own Americans. Why is that? And I just wanted to bring that to the table. The other person that's coming is Hannah Bernstein. She is an activist in the community, and she has a charitable organization, and she was impacted by the same thing because one of her clients happened to come through Downers Grove, was handicapped, disabled, had a car, and they loaned it to the organization to help somebody out, and that person has gone through all types of nightmares financially. So we have to have a little bit more lenience to our American population as well as foreigners, and that's all I want to bring here. Thank you.
Thank you for being here tonight. Any other questions or comments of a general nature? Questions or comments of a general nature with respect to items not appearing on our agenda tonight? Hearing none, Brings us to item 5 on our agenda, which is reserved for public hearings. We have no public hearings tonight. So I will pause and instead read a very important proclamation. It's my privilege to read a proclamation with respect to a celebration for St. Mary of Gostin School Day. Whereas in 1891, the Chicago Archdiocese approved the establishment of St. Mary of Gostin Catholic Parish, and whereas in 1897, St. Mary of Gostin School opened, and whereas the school was the first parochial school in Downers Grove, and whereas as of 1918, the school was staffed by the Felician Sisters, whose members are still with the school today. Whereas the school has experienced continuous growth for over a century, allowing children ages 3 to 14 to obtain an education enriched by their Catholic faith at St. Mary of Gostin. And whereas for over 115 years, St. Mary of Gostin School has been rich in faith, education, service, and community. Now therefore I, Martin T. Tully, Mayor of the Village of Downers Grove, do hereby proclaim February 5th, 2013 as St. Mary of Gostin School Day in the Village of Downers Grove in celebration and recognition of their 115 wonderful years and contributions to the village. And we have here tonight to receive the proclamation Dr. Kathleen Benton, principal of St. Mary of Gostin School, and I'd love to call you up and present you with the proclamation. Since we do everything on television, I'm going to ask you to go to the center here.
Okay.
So the folks at home can see you. Thank you for being here tonight. Congratulations. Thank you very much.
Parish Administrator, Mr. Michael.
Sure. All right, thank you. And if you'd like to say a couple of words, I think 115 years deserves a couple of words. Yeah.
We are very excited to have 115 years here in Downers Grove community, and we were very lucky that the people of Gostin, Poland decided to settle in Downers Grove and start one of the largest parishes. And I just want to share a couple things that recently we are fortunate enough that we have a growing community at our parish, and that we have just purchased 2 additional adjacent properties over in our neighborhood over there at Prairie and Douglas area. And so I want you to know that we are growing and thriving and adding additional buildings and hoping to expand our 3-corner campus so that we will become the largest parochial school in the Diocese of Joliet. So that's exciting for us and exciting for Downers Grove. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you very much for being here, Dr. Benton. Appreciate it. And congratulations once again. That brings us to item 6 on our agenda tonight, which is our consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved. Second.
Any questions or comments from any members of the audience with respect to any of the items on the consent agenda? Any questions or comments from any members of the Village Council? Commissioner Neustadt.
Just one quick item. I don't usually comment on the consent agenda, but item C, it's a motion awarding $25,000 and some change to a police supply company for ammunition. The interesting note there is it's a combination with the Village of Downers Grove and the City of Darien. It's another opportunity where 2 municipalities have come together to partner to get a good buying power to come up with, in this case, ammunition. So thank you to the police departments both and to our purchasing policy for allowing us to partner with other municipalities to come up with great savings for our much-needed issues in our village. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other questions or comments on any of the consent agenda items? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin?
Aye.
Commissioner Neustadt?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. Consent agenda passes unanimously. It brings us to item 7, which is our active agenda. We have 2 items on our active agenda tonight, 7A and 7B. Do I have a motion to adopt a resolution authorizing a grant agreement with 522 Ogden Avenue?
Mayor, I motion to adopt a resolution authorizing the execution of a grant agreement between the Village of Downers Grove, Perez D. Kashtafa.
Second.
Any questions or comments from any members of the audience with respect to this item? Questions or comments from members of the village council? Commissioner Barnett?
I just want to reiterate, I'll be voting against this tonight for the same reasons I talked about last week. I just don't approve of the process that includes very little or no public improvements with TIF money.
Thank you for comments. Other questions or comments from members of the council? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Newstead?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin? Aye. Commissioner Barnett?
Nay.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. The matter passes 5-1. That brings us to 7B as in boy. Do I have a motion to adopt a resolution authorizing a grant agreement with respect to 946 Ogden Avenue?
Mayor, I motion to adopt a resolution authorizing execution of a grant agreement between the Village of Downers Grove and Anthony Zangler as presented.
Second.
Are there any questions or comments with respect to this item from any members of the audience? Questions or comments from members of the village council? Hearing none? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin? Aye. Commissioner Barnett?
Nay.
Commissioner Newstead?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. The matter also passes 5-1. That brings us to the end of our active agenda and brings us to our first reading or workshop agenda, where we entertain for discussion only matters that may be acted upon at a later point in time. We have 2 items on our first reading or workshop agenda tonight, and as is customary, I will turn this portion of the meeting over to Village Manager David Fieldman for a presentation of these 2 items. Mr. Fieldman.
Tom Daberiner will present both items tonight, Mayor.
Thank you. I was trying to stretch it out and give you time to get up there, Mr. Fieldman.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The first item is the 2013 zoning map. It's an annual thing that we do and are required to do. So an ordinance has been prepared for the adoption of the official 2013 Downers Grove zoning map. We're looking for approval next week on February 12th on the active agenda. This is pursuant to state law. Municipalities are required to publish a map prior to March 31st. It is prior to March 31st at this time. There are a few changes, and there is the official 2013 zoning map if it's adopted, along with some changes, all of which came through the Village Council at one point or another last year. Staff recommends approval. Be happy to answer any questions.
I was just waiting for my cue. Thank you very much.
Sorry.
Are there any questions or comments from any members of the audience with respect to this item? Questions or comments from members of the Village Council? Well stated. Brings us to 8B.
An ordinance has been prepared amending Plan Development Number 51, which is Midwestern University, to permit the construction of a chapel. We are seeking approval on the February 12th, 2013 active agenda. The site is zoned R1. It is covered by a plan development that was put in place, perhaps you noticed on the map just before, that came about on May 1st last year. The campus was designated, received the plan development designation then. It's been a campus, college campus in one form or another since 1965. Right in the middle there, that little blue square, is the approximate location. This would be a 2,500 square foot chapel located in the center of campus. We zoom in a little bit and we can see where that might be sitting again in relation to other buildings surrounding it. Chapel meets all of the bulk requirements of the zoning ordinance as well as the plan development agreement. Attractive building here. This is a perspective that was provided to us. I know you've all been waiting for this. I need to take this. Let me see if I can do this. Now I have to warn you that the planners prepared this and they're getting a little crazy with this. You can fly around quite a bit, and in fact I get a little dizzy. But it does provide a really good perspective of how this building fits in if we could pause even for a moment to take a look. It is sitting back in this location here, but this is 31st Street here and the residential area there, parking deck over here, just to give you a sense of perspective here. I'm surprised I could stop it. I'm not sure I was supposed to be able to do that. So we'll take it back at some point here to where we started. I've got to teach them how to fly. This is... The Plan Commission considered the petition at their January 7th, 2013 meeting, and they found that the proposal met the standards of approval for a plan development amendment per section 28.1607 of the zoning ordinance. They recommended approval unanimously, and staff concurs. Be happy to answer any questions, and I know that we have some assistance from Midwestern University, if I can't answer the question.
Thank you, Mr. Dave Reiner. We appreciate Dr. Geppinger and her team being here tonight, as usual. Always nice to see you in our chambers. Don't particularly have a question, but why don't I open up to the audience, and then we'll see if there's anything you'd like to add. Unless you'd like to... add to the presentation first, we welcome hearing from you. Good evening.
Mayor, thank you, and thank you, council members. Just, commissioners, I'd like you to just know that this building is going to be a very important part on our campus, and that's because, well, we teach healthcare. We understand, too, that our students have many other personal, spiritual needs, and so this is very multi-faiths, and we'll have everything from our students that want to come and just do reflection, to the Muslim students that might come and pray on a regular basis, to all of our other religious groups that have clubs that come together just to worship, pray, and to spend time. So it's a very small structure, but we have decided it fits very much with our mission, and so that's why we're bringing this before all of you tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Geppinger. Always good to see you.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments from any members of the audience with respect to this item? Questions or comments from members of the council? Commissioner Waldeck.
Thank you, Mayor. I think this is a great addition to the university. Certainly like the idea that students get to pray before finals.
It never did me any good.
Sometimes you need all the help you can get. No, but the building itself and everything, I have absolutely no problem with. But as a structure itself, this could have gone through without all the verbiage about being a chapel. It could have been a storage building or anything else now or in the future. We're approving the structure, and that's what we do up here, is approve the structures. So it is not, they don't have to come back to us at some other time if they decide to make other use of it. Very good. Just wanted to get that point across for people at home who are reading. And thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other questions or comments? Commissioner Barnett?
Thank you, Mayor. No questions, really, just a comment. In addition to the fact that it's a chapel, which is certainly a nice addition, there's some 12 or 13 new trees, there's a rain garden, and I appreciate all that, and most importantly, I just wanted to say thank you to the university for continuing to feel like Downers Grove is worth investing in. I know you've got multiple facilities and certainly to some degree limited resources like all of us, so thank you for wanting to reinvest in our community. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Well said. Ditto. Other questions or comments from members of the Village Council?
The new building, is that going to be right in front of the building that we had the ribbon cutting for about a year or two ago? Okay, it's not. That's all I had.
Other questions or comments? I'll just simply refer my comments to those that were articulated by Commissioner Barnett. We're always glad to see Midwestern University expand its presence in our community. It's been a terrific partnership, and we look forward to many, many more opportunities. And once again, anytime that we can host you here in our chambers, we're glad to do so. And that brings us to the end of our workshop or first reading.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. It brings us to item 9, which is the mayor's report. And we have a very special mayor's report this evening because this is the mayor's report where we take the opportunity to present to the community what we call the annual State of the Village Address. The tradition of a chief executive giving a verbal State of the Union address, as I've said in the past, dates back to January 8th, 1790, when President George Washington delivered the first annual report before a joint session of Congress meeting then in New York City. In Downers Grove, we've developed our own similar tradition, which has become known as the State of the Village Address, which is designed to highlight some of the successes of the past year. Now, these successes would not be possible, of course, without the collaborative and dedicated efforts of a significant team comprised of village staff, elected officials, stakeholder partnerships, and resident volunteers. And so without further ado, it is my pleasure to present to you the achievements of the year 2012 in the annual State of the Village Address. This year's State of the Village Address will focus, as you will see, on 6 key topics: stewardship and sustainability, infrastructure investment, municipal services, local economy, continuous innovation, and recognition of our status as municipal leaders amongst our peers. I'll begin with 2012 seeing the village once again demonstrating itself as a prudent steward of financial and environmental resources. Of course, unless you were living on Mars for the last year or so, you know that the village in 2012 introduced a stormwater utility, the very first one in DuPage County. The stormwater utility created a permanent, sustainable, dedicated funding source for stormwater infrastructure system and maintenance. A more logical, equitable, and accountable funding structure with payments based on impervious area rather than property value. This will allow us to continue to maintain our infrastructure in compliance with both our local needs as well as Federal Clean Water Act requirements. This was a long-running project and had been in discussion in one way or another for over a decade before finally being formally adopted and implemented last year. In 2012, we also issued $35 million in bonds. These bonds were used to reconstruct streets that have fallen into disrepair, and we'll be seeing some of those later tonight, and also to construct much-needed water system improvements. Existing revenues are used to make the debt service payments so there were no tax increases in order to do so. What helped keep our cost of borrowing low was our AA+ bond rating, which I would say is a lot better than the state of Illinois, but unfortunately that's not saying very much. But it is an indication that keeping a good bond rating, as Commissioner Durkin will often point out, keeps our borrowing costs down, which is ultimately of a benefit to our residents and our taxpayers. Along the process, Standard & Poor's, notwithstanding their recent press, their report in the process offered a strong endorsement of the village's long-range financial planning process. Once again, something that we have utilized here with a great deal of success. The next item I'd like to focus on is that we launched a monthly electronics recycling program. This grew out of the success, of course, of the annual recycling extravaganza. Now doing it on a monthly basis, the first Saturday of every month, I believe. I took advantage of it myself this past Saturday. Provides residents an opportunity to dispose of electronics that cannot be placed and should not be placed into landfills. So this has been a very successful program as well and is supported by lots of volunteers. Another program introduced last year that helps demonstrate good, prudent financial stewardship is, after looking at the issue, we decided to privatize downtown and train station snow removal. And candidly, up until a few weeks ago, I wouldn't have had anything to talk about in terms of snow removal, but we've now had enough to see that this is working pretty well. By privatizing the snow removal in this area, we reduced the costs of doing so by $8,000 per year. I've now completed the snow routes 30% quicker, eliminating the need for village-owned specialty vehicles, a capital expense, and also decreases the risk and liability expenses associated with conducting the operation with our own staff. This was another good innovation by our village staff. Speaking of good innovations by village staff, we also solved a long-running issue that Commissioner Durkin was going to stay in office until it was finally resolved. Now he can retire, which is executing an agreement with PACE, the bus system, in order to eliminate the operating deficit of our own village-run bus system. Now, all expenses with the Grove Commuter Shuttle are covered by PACE and the bus riders themselves through the farebox revenues. This allows for reduction of accumulated deficit using interest income growth. And we now have additional streets that are being resurfaced as $185,000 per year in gasoline tax revenue was shifted from previously supporting the bus system to now street resurfacing. So this has also helped us to make more repairs to streets that needed them very much. So once again, the key here is now, Commissioner Durkin is very glad to know that no village funds are used to operate the village buses. So we were able to figure out a solution to this puzzle that continues the service and yet does so in a financially responsible way. Well, it wouldn't be a State of the Village's address if we did not feature a photograph of a fire truck. So I want to use this to point out that through improvements and efforts of our fire department and village staff, we were able to reduce costs and also improve service through the fire department. And what do I mean by that? Well, essentially, we've been able to improve service levels while reducing expenses, resulting in 70% fewer call responses by the ladder truck that you see featured here in the photograph. We were able to reduce expenses for vehicle operation and maintenance, extend the life expectancy of the ladder truck and engines, all of which are very expensive pieces of equipment, and has reduced our reliance on mutual aid support. So here was another example of, through good creative thinking, we were able not only to reduce costs, but also to enhance our services. Speaking of infrastructure, which I've touched upon a couple of times, obviously the big story in 2012 when it comes to infrastructure was the completion of the long-awaited Belmont Underpass. What a tremendous feat of engineering, and anyone who has driven down Belmont Road while there's a train going overhead can't help but marvel at the accomplishment. The only thing that I think the engineering accomplishment is dwarfed by was the tremendous efforts of many, many people over a decade to actually bring it to reality. The Belmont Underpass, or Grade Separation Project as it is called, has a number of advantages, including improved vehicular and pedestrian safety, enhanced traffic flow, an increased number of commuter parking spaces, and improved access to the Ellsworth Business Park, which is of course important for economic development, which we will touch upon later. The key thing to understand here is that no village funds were used in the filming of this underpass. I'm being serious. No village dollars were contributed to this project. It all came from other organizations, and so this was a huge win for our community. Now, where the village did invest a lot of money last year was in its infrastructure, and I hinted at this a little bit earlier. Last year, we invested $19 million in infrastructure. Where did it go, you ask? And there's a nice picture up here of the Grove Street project. There's a before picture, and here's the after. A environmentally sustainable street through the use of some environmentally sustainable pavers. But where did all that money go, might you ask? Well, let me break it down for you. $14.2 million were put into street reconstruction, $3.4 million were put into maintaining our water system, $1.3 million were put into the stormwater system, and $730,000 into sidewalks. And there's a very handsome looking sidewalk right there. I'd like to pause briefly and talk about a couple of examples of infrastructure projects that we had this year that really worked out well and were high visibility. One was reconstructing the streets and the water main in the Valley View and Nottingham subdivisions here in the community. These projects, in addition to reconstructing the streets, included traffic calming measures to reduce speeds, coordinated the street reconstruction with water main replacements in order to reduce costs and reduce resident disruption, and as you saw earlier with the Grove Street project in particular, created a model project of environmental sustainability. These are just a few of the first of many street reconstruction projects that will be taking place over the next 5 years. So I'll be looking forward to reporting on more of these this time next year. Another example that I'd like to highlight is the construction of a detention facility at 2nd and Cumner. This project alleviated structure and street flooding in the area, created an environmentally sustainable detention facility, and increased public awareness by using a QR code, one of Commissioner Newstadt's favorite things, and just for him, I want to make sure that everybody knew what a QR code looked like. One of these is featured on the informational sign on site so that residents who are curious as to the background of the story can take out their mobile phones and, using a QR reader, learn more about the project. And thanks to Commissioner Newstadt, you're seeing those appear more and more throughout the village on similar projects. This project in particular is an award-winning project. It was named the American Society of Civil Engineers Project of the Year, no less. So all in all, a great project to highlight. Some other things that we've done in terms of top quality infrastructure is improving neighborhood traffic management. We, through a traffic management study in the Whittier School neighborhood, we've been able to reduce average vehicle speeds, increase pedestrian safety by redesigning pedestrian street crossings, and improve intersection safety by adding signage at all intersections. This was the first such neighborhood traffic study, but many, many more are planned. There is one going on right now at the Downers Grove North Herrick Middle School area as we speak. Well, maybe not as we speak, but in this general time frame. So those are some examples of providing top quality infrastructure last year. And in addition to infrastructure, one of the major missions of the village, of course, is to deliver exceptional municipal services. And I'd like to highlight just a few things that took place in 2012. Again, unless you were on another planet or in Siberia, you no doubt were aware of the electrical aggregation program that was launched and implemented not just in Downers Grove, but in many communities. After a referendum, we were able to take advantage of this program and reduce resident electric bills by an average of $350 per year. The program that we adopted also enhances the use of renewable energy sources by purchasing renewable energy credits. And we were to gain some additional administrative expenses, reductions in administrative expenses, significantly by partnering with our neighbors in the village of Westmont. So all in all, electrical aggregation as a first-time experiment for the village of Downers Grove has been paying off pretty well. Speaking of electricity, and not the cost of electricity, but the reliability of electricity, many will recall after some very violent storms a couple of summers ago, we held a town hall meeting in 2011 with senior executives from Commonwealth Edison with respect to their electrical distribution as it pertains to the village of Downers Grove. As a result of that town hall meeting, there were a number of steps taken by ComEd, including tree trimming and equipment replacement, that has had the effect of improving the reliability of electrical service in our community. We continue to report out on our efforts with respect to working with ComEd, and it has basically resulted in both improved reliability of the system in our community and improved communication and relationships with Commonwealth Edison. The event was so successful that we did it again in 2012, and it has now become an annual event. So both businesses and residents have an opportunity to work one-on-one with Commonwealth Edison to raise issues that they're concerned about in terms of the reliability of electrical service. Parking. Parking is always a big issue in Downers Grove. It's been an issue since as long as I can remember, and it will always be an issue. The downtown area is obviously very popular and is the source of lots of attention in terms of parking and parking enhancements. And 2012 was no exception. Due to studies and enhancements with respect to parking in the downtown business district, we were able to achieve increased opportunities for shopper and visitor parking, increased the number of shopper parking spaces on both, in particular on the north side of the railroad tracks, which is something that merchants and others over there have been asking for some time. We have provided 15-minute parking spaces on each block and increased the number of free parking spaces available beginning at 11 a.m. So this is, again, something that we continue to look at and figure out ways to improve even further as circumstances dictate. Well, Downers Grove is a technology community, and we hold ourselves out as a technology community. In fact, it's in our mission statement and our description of who we are. And no technology community worth its salt would not have a Facebook page. So yes, 2012 saw the Village of Downers Grove launching a Facebook page, and if you haven't visited it or liked it, I would encourage you to do so. This tool has allowed us enhanced communication with residents and other stakeholders. On average, we post twice a day with important news and happenings. This helps the village, this helps establish the village as a primary source for news and information in our area, and expands an already exceptionally extensive communication network here in Downers Grove. Well, we use Facebook to talk about major accomplishments, and one that we celebrated was the reaccreditation of our police department by CALEA, or the Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies. Well, why is this important, you might ask? Well, I know it was a lot of work, and our hats are off to our police department for putting all the work into achieving this accomplishment. But why was that important, might you ask? Well, I'll let you know. Number one, it reduces risk and liability expenses for the village. It ensures the use of best practices in policing and achieves 100% compliance with required national standards. So this accreditation is not only a feather in the cap of our police department, but has real meaningful benefits to our community. I talked about the economy earlier, and one of our constant focuses here in Downers Grove is facilitating a strong and diverse local economy. And obviously, Ogden Avenue and the car dealerships that are there are important because of the sales tax that they generate. It helps us keep other taxes lower than what they otherwise might be. I want to just touch upon two success stories with respect to auto dealerships on Ogden Avenue, and one is we welcomed the new Aston Martin dealer. And I know, Commissioner Durkin, you didn't like the color of your first one, so you traded it already, I understand, but this was a huge coup to the village of Downers Grove, having an Aston Martin dealership choose to locate in our community. Just to give you an idea of how important that is for our economic engine, this dealership is expected to increase our annual sales tax revenue by about $185,000 on an annual basis. So this is a pretty big deal. It also enhances the attractive high-end dealership area on Ogden Avenue, increases awareness of our community, Downers Grove, through Aston Martin's own national advertising campaign, which includes the Downers Grove location. And they had a very nice sort of, wasn't a ribbon cutting, but it was a opening celebration or a pre-opening celebration, which also drew a lot of attention to our community. In addition to Aston Martin, we also retained the Packy Webb Ford dealership on Ogden Avenue. This project was a success in that it also facilitated pedestrian improvements at Finley and Ogden Avenue and responded to unexpected changes in state regulations regarding pedestrian improvements. I'd like to underscore that both the Aston Martin dealership and retaining the Packy Webb Ford are examples of successes in the relationship between the Village of Downers Grove and the Downers Grove Economic Development Corporation and our auto dealer attraction and retention strategy. This is the type of thing where we do need to spend a lot of attention, time, and effort on it because it's a very competitive world that we live in. Other municipalities would love to attract these businesses either to their communities or away from us, and we need to continue to work hard in conjunction with the Economic Development Corporation to maintain these vibrant businesses in our community. We have our guests here tonight from Midwestern University, and we wouldn't be a State of the Village presentation without celebrating another expansion of Midwestern University here in Downers Grove. If you haven't seen it going up in the construction cranes yet, you can drive up to Finley and see it. But we, working with Midwestern University, the village facilitated construction of a 128,400 square foot auditorium with classrooms, a 193,200 square foot dental clinic, and a 345,000 square foot parking deck that will service those new facilities. This facility, when it's all completed, will increase the number of students and guests contributing to the Downers Grove economy substantially. And in a great additional benefit, the auditorium that's being constructed will be a performing arts venue that, thanks to Midwestern University, will be made available for local not-for-profit performances, again enhancing the overall quality of life in our community. And importantly, the dental services through the clinic will be made available to the public at below market rates. And once again, this was another success story achieved through our partnership with the Downers Grove Economic Development Corporation. Downers Grove is proud to be the home for a number of headquarters, and we are able to count another one on our list in 2012. Downers Grove will soon be the national headquarters of the American Society for Gastrointestinal Endoscopy. I worked very hard to make sure I pronounced that correctly. The village, working with the ASGE, facilitated construction of a 41,000 square foot office headquarters for the ASGE, which will increase the number of physicians and guests contributing to the Downers Grove economy. Finally, we had a little bit of discussion earlier tonight on our agenda with respect to the OASIS program, which is an acronym that stands for the Ogden Avenue Site Improvement Strategy. This program was expanded in 2012, and you saw a couple of grants approved tonight. That was done through an expansion of the funding available for improvements to private property, reducing the matching funding requirements to make participation easier, and this program overall has been pretty successful. Since its inception, right, we'll try that one more time. Since its inception, try that 10 times fast. $410,000 in total grant funding has been awarded to 20 projects in this program's history. And the key thing here is that overall, the grants from this program has spurred $1.32 million in private investment. So not a bad return on our $410,000. And once again, this was something that is achieved through partnership with the Downers Grove Economic Development Corporation. Downers Grove, among other things, also is very proud of its ability to cultivate continuous innovation in our community. And once again, 2012 was no exception. We are a technology community, and again, no self-respecting technology community would not be in the cloud, and we are in the cloud. The village has migrated its systems internally to Google Apps, and you might say, well, that's really cool, but what are the benefits? Well, here are a few. Having these things in the cloud instead of locally allows us to reduce hardware, software, and labor expenses, reduces the total cost of ownership, and it has some additional benefits such as improving our search capabilities, which means that we spend a reduced amount of time doing FOIA responses to FOIA requests, Freedom of Information Act requests, and overall enhances features for document sharing and collaboration by village staff as well as elected officials. Speaking of the internet and websites, one of the other things that was accomplished in 2012 was village staff responding to a council challenge to come up with an electronic clearinghouse for not-for-profit resources, partnered with DuPage County and using existing resources. Staff created an online searchable database for social services provided by Downers Grove area organizations. This has a number of benefits, including increased participation by local not-for-profit service providers by creating awareness of the county program and offering training. And, as mentioned, achieved the Village Council's desired outcome at little cost to the village by avoiding duplication of government services. This is yet another example of effective intergovernmental partnership and cooperation between the village and other taxing bodies. Speaking of partnerships, one thing that we're very proud of, among other things, was our experimental and yet very successful agreement with CSPAR and District 58 Grade School District for fleet operation expenses. We entered into an agreement that reduced fleet operation expenses for District 58 and CSPAR by sharing fixed costs with the village. This had the consequence of reducing District 58 and CSPAR's maintenance expenses by $2,800 annually, simply by working in conjunction with the village. And this obviously is to benefit of our shared constituents. It also results in the improved condition of District 58 and CSPAR vehicles, and I'm sure that Commissioner Neustadt can testify to that if needed. But once again, another successful example of effective intergovernmental partnerships by the village and other taxing bodies. One more example that I'll mention is our launch of an interoperable radio system. This allows for communication amongst all public safety agencies in DuPage County, improves responses to emergency events involving multiple agencies, and this entire program is funded by the DuPage County Emergency Telephone Safety Board. This is another example of the village working effectively in intergovernmental partnership with other government bodies in our community, something that we continue to strive to identify opportunities to pursue in a way that is to the benefit of our shared constituents. Well, all this work did not go unnoticed in 2012, and it should probably come as little surprise that a lot of folks here in Downers Grove have recognized these accomplishments, but it's always nice to receive recognition statewide and also across the country. 2012 was a great example of Downers Grove being recognized as a leader amongst municipalities. And let me give you some examples of what I'm referring to. First, we received a number of awards for both projects and individual achievements, and here are just a few. The ASCE Project of the Year, as I mentioned, was awarded to the second Encumber Basin Detention Project. Our comprehensive plan received the APA Illinois Chapter Best Award. The Finance Department is quite full of itself for all the awards that it's won, two of which included the GFOA Distinguished Budget Presentation Award and the GFOA Excellence in Financial Reporting Award for our comprehensive annual financial report, also more commonly known as the audit. We're going to have to build a bigger wall to support all the awards that the Finance Department has been earning in recent years. But to continue, Downers Grove was designated as a top transit community by DePaul University's Chaddick Institute for Metropolitan Development. The Citizens Utility Board named Downers Grove as one of the top energy-saving communities in the area. And some of our village staff were singled out as exceptional, as they should be. Marcia Giesler of our fire department won not only the NFPA Fire and Life Safety Educator of the Year Award, but also the Illinois Fire Alliance Educator of the Year Award. I hazard to say if this keeps up, they're going to name an award after Marcia Giesler, and so they should. But I also want to point out that our own Nick Linklater in the police department won the award from Mothers Against Drunk Driving for his efforts in our community. Well, Downers Grove also received some media attention in 2012, and again, let me just share a few examples with you. Our Memorial Day ceremony was featured on NBC Nightly News. Faraday Live, that took place during the week of the Ryder Cup, was taped at the Tivoli Theater here in Downers Grove, and you know you've really made it to the big time when the Tivoli is the subject and the situs of a Geico commercial. Here's just a few seconds from that if you haven't already seen it.
On my journey across America, I found new ways to tell people about saving money. This is Bobby.
And goodbye, Bobby. Oh, it's always nice when we get that kind of advertising for our community, and what better to see across the televisions in the United States than our own beloved Tivoli Theater. Well, one thing that we received towards the end of last year that was a little bit of an unexpected and early Christmas present was Forbes magazine listed Downers Grove one of the top 10 friendliest communities to live in the entire country. In fact, we came in number 8th in the country, and we were the only one that was given that distinction in the state of Illinois. And these things don't happen by accident. It's because of the kind of successes that I've been describing so far during this presentation that we achieved that kind of recognition. Now, this logo that you're seeing here on the screen is a result of a joint effort by the Village of Downers Grove, the Downers Grove Park District, the Downtown Management Corporation, and the Downers Grove Economic Development Corporation to promote our designation as one of the top friendliest communities to live in the country, and will soon be available for use by local businesses, civic organizations, and governmental bodies. Details on how to obtain your copy will be available on the Village website and local media outlets starting tomorrow. So call now. Operators are standing by. But once again, another example of the Village working with other taxing bodies in collaboration and cooperation to celebrate a success that really the whole community earned and should be very proud of. Now you might ask, why is all this important? Sure, we're patting ourselves on the back. We won some awards. We're getting on TV nationally. Increased public awareness of Downers Grove on a national level brings advantages to our community. It helps with our branding, and it brings opportunities that might not otherwise be there. So this is all things that we should be very happy about, and a lot of it comes just through our own hard work and no additional effort. So we're reaping some of the rewards. Those are the 6 pillars that I want to talk about in terms of topics for the State of the Village address. And as always, it's tough to distill down a whole year to a mere 30 minutes or however over I've already gone. But in sum, ladies and gentlemen, the state of our village is this: strong and resourceful. With the Great Recession not too distant in our rearview mirror, we are proud to be on strong financial footing, but we are mindful of the challenges that lay ahead and the curveballs that can come from many directions, too often from the state capitol, unfortunately. The lessons of the past few years will be instructive for many yet to come. One in particular will be the need to continually innovate wherever possible and to cooperate, collaborate, and consolidate local government resources wherever prudent and feasible. As President Grover Cleveland put it in his State of the Union address on December 6, 1886, such innovation will necessarily, of course, in the beginning, be within the domain of intelligent experiment. And the subject in every stage should receive all possible encouragement from the government. I'd like to think that our intelligent experiments in 2012 and other years turned out to be pretty darn successful, and we will continue to encourage at every stage possible further such intelligent experiment. In closing, I'd like to thank the Village Council, my colleagues in particular, for their leadership and their vision, our village staff for helping to craft and then implement this vision so successfully. I'd like to thank our many volunteers on boards and commissions and elsewhere throughout the community, and of course our residents for their input and support in making all of this possible. As said before, it is no accident that Forbes magazine chose Downers Grove as one of the top 10 friendliest towns to live in the United States, and that's because the good people of this community make it so. Thank you for your attention, and we'll see you next year. That ends the mayor's report and brings us to item 10 on our agenda, which is the manager's report. Mr. Fieldman.
No report tonight, Mayor.
I had blocked off 30 minutes for you, too.
And you were right on time on your 30 minutes. Well done, sir.
Item 11, Attorney's Report.
Thank you, Mayor. Only 2 items to present tonight. The first is an ordinance approving a plan development amendment to Plan Development Number 51 to allow the construction of a chapel at Midwest University located at 555 31st Street, and an ordinance adopting the 2013 zoning map. That is all. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. That brings us to item 12, council member reports and new business. We'll take new business first. Do any of my colleagues have any items of new business? Hearing no items of new business, we'll turn to council member reports. Commissioner Neustadt, would you like to start us off?
Sure, Mayor, thank you. This weekend starts the annual Ice Festival in downtown Downers Grove. The theme this year is Love is in the Air. February 8th through 10th, there'll be all sorts of activities in the downtown area, including live demonstrations of ice carvings. There'll be a pancake breakfast. The Tivoli Theater will be showing a special presentation of Ice Age, which the admission proceeds going to Noah's Hope charity. Radio Disney will be here. Valley Doyle and the Two-Way Street Coffee House both have events and bands lined up for Friday and Saturday and Sunday. It's a great event, even though it's in the middle of winter. It gets a lot of folks into our downtown. You can see some of the great new shops that we have and some really cool ice sculptures and carvings. I think this year they're adding a couple of new things with some lit up sculptures and some just a little bit different sculptures than we've seen before. So hope to see everybody in town this weekend and that the weather cooperates.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Commissioner Rankin.
I would like to share another event in downtown. The Grove Foundation is having their Passport to Dining on February 28th. It's a Thursday. It's from 6 to 9 p.m. For $25, you can go to 5 restaurants in Downers Grove, and the proceeds go to fund programs in Downers Grove. And the restaurants are Valley Doyle, Scarletti's, Zest Bistro, Gatto's, and Another Round. So you start at one restaurant and you get to go to all the others. And if you get to all of them, you get to be entered into a raffle. So I hope you can come. The information to sign up is at www.thegrovefoundation.org.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Waldeck.
Thank you, Mayor. First off, I want to thank you for the State of the Village address and the work that staff put in and putting it all together. Made it easy to understand, very, very proud. And to take off from something Commissioner Neustadt said, you know, we have an ice festival, enjoy the ice festival, enjoy ice where there's ice. A concern of mine for a number of years was, and a comment that we had over the summer when we were talking about a particular pond in town, how some ponds get used improperly. And we've had a very strange winter with some cold weather, some warm weather. So it's a little late right now, but parents, tell your kids to stay off the ice. There are certain places where you just can't count on it being safe. So use designated areas, attend the ice festival, and otherwise we want to keep you alive and just not call out our emergency teams to try and pull somebody out of water. So be safe out there, folks. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Barnett.
Thanks, Mayor. I just want to read something that came to mind as I was listening to the State of the Village address there. You used a word that I thought was really appropriate, and I wanted to underscore it by adding some additional definition. You used the word stewardship early on, and this council and this staff has, top to bottom, in 2012, all those awards, all those successes that you touched on are a result, I would suggest, of the team that works day in and day out at the village, understanding and really believing in stewardship. There's a couple of definitions here. The position or duties of a steward, a person who acts as a surrogate of another or others, especially by managing property, financial affairs, and estate. Certainly our village staff does that all day, every day, 365 days a year. And then there's another one that really struck me because of the second to the last word. Responsible for overseeing and protection of something considered worth caring for or worth preserving. And that, if that doesn't describe what it is that our village staff does and our council does day in and day out for the 115 years that St. Mary's has been here and the 175 plus years that the village has been here, I don't know what does. All of those things you touched on are results of really good hard work, and I just think it's entirely appropriate, because we don't do it enough, to celebrate those successes. So thank you for taking the time to put that together and describing them, touching on what those were. We go through our business often in ways that just aren't exciting and celebratory. So it was entirely appropriate to do that at this point, and thank you for that, and I hope everybody sort of dwells a little bit on what stewardship means, because that's what we do.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Durkin?
Yeah, just one item for staff. Today when I got home from the office, I noticed that tree trimmers were in our neighborhood. And I received actually a couple of calls from a couple of neighbors that came up with an idea, and I was hoping maybe we could do it. And if we are doing it, we may have forgotten to do it today. I know that in the past, when there's services or work going to be done in an area, we are very good at hanging door hangers and letting people know about those. Is there any way that we could, if not this seasons going forward, to let people know when the tree trimmers are in the area? Some of the residents had cars parked in streets for obvious reasons. Also, vehicle needing to get in and out of driveways during the time that the trucks and the trees limbs were down. If there's a way, maybe we can incorporate a tag program or something in the door or whatever to let people know, or even just basically a sign that some of the other communities put out, tree trimming in this area the week of X, so people see that. I think would only enhance our level of service. Other than that, it looks great. And I'm so glad to see that we do have trees with leaves. I mean, it's, I can't wait till they come back out. And thanks for putting those colorful pictures on. So great state of the village, and hats off to all of us, because like I've said before, many of us have said, it's a lot of hard work and a lot of hard decisions that we have to come down and make at the end of the day. But at the end of the year, when we have this report out, you can see all the hard work and the results that come out of it. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I have exceeded my quota for speaking tonight, so I have no report. But we cannot adjourn. We do need to go into executive session to consider some personnel issues.
Mayor,
motion?
Mayor, I move to convene into closed session pursuant to Section 2C1 of the Illinois Open Meetings Act to consider the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the village.
Any questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Neustadt?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. We are adjourned into executive session. Thank you and good night.